It's been almost a year to the day since Adam was arrested and charged with 13 counts of the Bushfire Offence. On a rainy day in August 2024, Adam becomes a convicted arsonist when he is sentenced here at Cessnock Local Court. Remember, we heard about David being sentenced the week before. Honestly, Adam and David's sentencing were similar. There isn't a heap of people around, and the case could be mistaken for any of the other cases here at the New South Wales Local Court. What I mean is there isn't a great fanfare and it feels just like any other case. The journalist has taken a seat in the half-empty gallery. Today there is also a TV journalist. Remember, there were multiple news channels at the first court mention at Maitland Local Court, so I'm not surprised to see them. Before court starts, the sheriff approaches me in the gallery and says the magistrate will allow me to use my laptop. Sorry, what? I realise the journalists have asked to use their laptops, and the sheriff has asked the magistrate who has given their okay, and it's been extended to me. The reality is I only have a pen and paper and snacks in my bag because after a year following this case, I have given up asking, can I use a laptop? I mention this because it confirms to me the magistrate knows there are journalists in the gallery. I'm sure they know who's in the gallery anyways. It's just something that happens later on that makes me think about the dynamic between the court and the journalists. Anyways, Adam's case is heard about 10 a.m. We hear sentencing considerations for about half an hour. Adam never speaks. He sits in the defendant's chair behind the solicitor's bench as his solicitor does all the talking. Similar to David the week before, we hear about his background, childhood, education, health issues, employment, and family. Now, every defendant will do sentencing considerations a little different. You can say a lot or remain silent. In Adam's case, we hear more about his motives. Of course, we hear about his association with firefighting. We also hear about the impact to the environment, and this is something we didn't hear in David's case. We also heard about Adam's attempts at restorative justice, which is self-driven. Remember Adrian from the Tweed region? He participated in restorative justice. In a different way, but similar concept. Adam had the opportunity through a program which involved the fire service. However, Adam and his family have instead created the opportunity themselves. Maybe the program isn't available anymore for Adam? I wondered if the fire service would benefit from restorative justice in Adam's case. I thought we heard a more diverse range of sentencing considerations in Adam's case compared to David's. Unlike in David's case, the prosecution gave sentencing considerations in Adam's case. They were only brief, and I have no idea what they said because I couldn't hear from the gallery. Remember, the magistrate has a ton of paperwork in front of them to consider as well. So the magistrate hears the considerations and stands the case down as they want to read over the case further during the morning tea break. So fast forward about an hour and a half, and at about midday the case is heard again. This time the magistrate does all the talking. For the next 20 minutes the magistrate goes through the offending and explains their decision for sentencing. So we hear details about places, times and fires. Up front it's explained that because Adam was a firefighter, his offending is considered aggravated and therefore crosses the threshold for jail. We have already heard that Adam is terrified of jail, particularly after spending 7 days in Silverwater when bail was refused after his arrest. By the way, Silverwater is one of the jails in Sydney. It's never said what happened to Adam in Silverwater, however it's inferred the experience was not good. The magistrate has a sort of balancing act to do. Adam, in a way, has already started his punishment. After the experience in Silverwater, he has been under house arrest for the rest of the time, which is just under a year. He lost his apprenticeship and his freedom is limited because he can't leave the house unless he's under the supervision of a family member or his solicitor. The court is told he's not breached bail during the entire year-long legal proceedings. The magistrate has to consider Adam's rehabilitation and consider a sentencing that promotes this. So in general, there's a mix of the community and Adam, hence the balancing act. During the magistrate saying some of the details out loud, it becomes very clear that there is at least another person involved. Adam pled guilty to many of the charges as an accessory, meaning the other person is the principal offender. Who? It's understood Adam made submissions way back at the arrest in August 2023. The brief of evidence was finalised 6 months ago. What I mean is the evidence is not new. Why hasn't this been used to arrest the principal? During the sentencing, when the magistrate is describing one of the bushfires, he says blah 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 and then Adam and his friend, who is named in the facts, then did this or that. The magistrate doesn't say the person's name, but they clearly say who is named in the facts into the microphone, aka onto the court record. So for me, Adam's whole bushfire story is now half told. Like David, I think the co-accused, i.e. the other half of the story, needs to be told before we are in a position to tell the whole story. The court is dealing with one defendant at a time, and that's how the system is designed. Both the print journalist and the TV journalist publish stories soon after. And there's a TV camera waiting out the front. The TV cameras aren't allowed on the veranda, so they have to stand out in the rain and wait. By the way, I choose to black out Adam's name to avoid privacy and defamation issues. I also black out the magistrate's name because I prefer they remain nameless. Again, I don't agree with them printing the name of the brigade Adam was associated with. That's just my opinion. The stories do mention the fires were lit in company, therefore acknowledging another person was involved. But they don't ask the question, so what's happening there? Will they be investigated? A year later, will they be charged? I filmed this a couple of weeks after the sentence delivery to see if the police follow up. Maybe they did investigate, but there was not enough evidence. But nothing, just silence. If the media don't ask and the police are silent, I think the question is left up to the community to ask. Will the principal offender or offenders be charged? Oops, I almost forgot to say what Adam was sentenced to. 2 years jail in the community, minus 7 days for the time he spent in Silverwater, plus 250 hours of community service. I thought that was consistent with the sentencing of Adrian from the Tweed region from a couple of years ago. Similar circumstances, multiple fires, and a young volunteer firefighter. But be aware, that doesn't mean the next defendant will be sentenced to the same. Firefighters convicted of the bushfire offence have a higher risk of jail than non-firefighters.